should be on live match. Okay, when it goes on, it's gonna be on our time. It's gonna need to be on our time.
In addition to that, I'd like to showcase society because there's so much hard work and dedication.
It's the board, it's the fucking music.
Every student doesn't get to see this. So student meeting,
We're back. Oh, it's coming from us. You can hear us. It's coming from Mac.
Society Bank, they're very interested in what they've got. Society Bank is a huge issue for treasurers of all places in this year. And I'd like to get that extra control by having the bank in those campus for attending a semester in order to fix these financial risks. Thank you very much, guys.
Election. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Shane. Shane is a second-year economics, politics and law student here at DCU. Our second candidate for Societies Officer is Matthew Sharkey. Matthew is a second-year multimedia student and he will also have 2 minutes to speak and share his ideas if he is elected next week. So thank you, Matthew.
My name is Matthew Patrick Sharkey. I use he, him pronouns and I am one of your candidates for Societies Officer for Lead DCUSU 2023. You may know me as the Inclusions Officer of DCU LGBTA Society or the PRO of Creative Writing. I've been a part of Society since my very first day in DCU, and even though this sounds like very cheesy, it has changed my life for the better, and I have made lifelong friends. As a person with a disability and a person in the LGBTQ community, I just want to make sure that societies are accessible for all. And that is why I am running for Societies Officer. We have some amazing societies in DCU, and some people can't be involved in them because of a variety of reasons, whether that be chronic illness, disability, they might have children, they might be a postgrad, they might have class. So I want to make sure that everyone can be included in society life. If elected, I will hopefully advocate on behalf of societies to get more events to be run on PATS and All Hallows, as students on these campuses often feel like traveling from one campus to another is too much of a hassle for a 2-hour, 1-hour society event. I want to review the accessibility policy, as currently it is very vague and people with disabilities aren't always included in society events. I want to make sure every society has an accessibility or inclusions officer to make sure that these students' issues are heard. I also want to advocate for societies to have a postgraduate officer, as a lot of these students feel underrepresented in societies and they deserve to be included in society life. So thank you very much, thank you for listening, and please vote Matthew for Societies Officer.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Matthew is a second-year multimedia student. As I said at the beginning of this is a new format. It's our first time trying it out, so we actually had a sound issue, a bit of turbulence at the very beginning. So Shane Murphy we're going to kindly ask Shane to repeat his 2-minute speech again. So Shane, if you wouldn't mind, if you could start again whenever you're ready, please.
No problem, Podge. So, hello again. My name is Shane Murphy. You've probably heard Podge say this already, but I'm a second-year economics, politics and law student. And I want to explain in 3 very quick points why you should vote for me as Societies Officer. Number 1, I'd like to rework the way we treat the Societies Officer here in DCU. For a long time now, the Societies Officer has been very much down to the individual running for it. Their aims and objectives fundamentally shape the position. I'd like to tweak it slightly and make it an ambassador for student life, to take it out of the administrative side of the Students' Union. How we do this is by having the Societies Officer promote events, and to help new societies. For example, I set up DCU Poker in my first year, a new society, and through that I have gained a lot of experience in setting up and running larger events and dealing with paperwork, and that's something that new societies do struggle with from time to time, so I'd like to help those societies. Secondly, I'd like to see the Students' Union showcase societies every week, a weekly society showcase. We could use this to show off the hard work and dedication of all societies here in DCU, because there's many hours that go in, and despite fantastic events being ran, not all students get to experience them. So I'd like to use the Students' Union's reach and social media in order to promote those events and help push more students into society life. Finally, I would like to improve the society banking situation. Society banking has been a massive issue for a very long time now, and I'd like to put a stamp and send it once and for all and get the issue sorted by having the bank on campus for 1 or 2 periods each semester, and in doing so we will fix the banking issues. So those are my 3 points, guys. I'd like to say thank you very much, and please vote Shane Murphy for Societies Officer.
Great, thank you very much again, Shane. So that is our 2 candidates for Societies Officer, Shane Murphy and Matthew Sharkey. And now we're going to pass them over to the College View team, who are going to have a couple of questions that they'd like to interview them with. Just to remind you again that next Tuesday and Wednesday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is when the voting is taking place, and you vote through your Loop module at loop.dcu.ie.
Hello, Matthew. Hello, Shane. So my first question here is for just for Shane. You said that you feel that the society's officers have a lack of direction sometimes. Can you tell me why you feel that way, and how can you change that?
Yeah, no problem. So I went asking, first of all, when I decided I was going to run, I just asked the people who were in the know. Obviously, as a second year, I've not been around for that long, and I asked them, what is the society's officer to you when you hear of it? These are people who are involved in the college, and they said to me, look, I'm not really sure. They represent societies. Well, we do have bodies who do that. We have the SLC, we have clubs and socks, and obviously they are the representative for societies. But I think where I come in, my view is that sometimes issues arise when you look at clubs and societies. It tends to be very isolated in a way, and not in a bad way, but the clubs and societies department of the college, it's fantastic. I love it to bits. I've been a part of it since day one in first year. However, while it's very good at promoting events to other societies, and that's who tend to get the social media reach, is members of other societies, there are a large cohort. The vast majority of students actually in DCU are not in any societies, and they're the students I'd like to target to bring the society life experience to the normal DCU student who is not in societies.
Hi Shane, hi Matthew. So my question is for Matthew. So just when you were speaking about the postgrad and inclusion officer then, there is this saying that too many cooks spoil the broth. So I'm just wondering then, would the inclusion of this new officer be too much for this committee? Is there then too many members on that committee?
So you could say that about any number of committee members, but for me it really stems from these students not being advised or not being thought about when society events are, put on. There's a lot of events that are held, let's say 6, 7 p.m, where postgraduate students have a lot of lectures. And on the accessibility front, a lot of societies honestly run very inaccessible events. Whether it's not wheelchair accessible, it's very loud. They don't think of people with other needs. So there's a lot of things that, one person, it's too much for committees. Usually don't think about it all together, but you usually have to have one person to fight for all these people. So that's kind of.
Okay, so then I just want to ask Shane then. So you were speaking about kind of, differing between societies. What would you consider, or is there kind of a where you would consider a larger and smaller society then in dealing with either of them? You want to give support to smaller societies. So what would you consider a smaller society? What would you consider a larger society?
Yeah, it's a good question. And look, there is no clear answer, really. The way I would approach it is targeting students in need, societies in need. So, for example, there are societies who maybe have a very niche field of interest, and as a result, their membership can be quite low. The problem with those societies is what I've seen through my work with the SLC and karting and intersoc events. The issue that arises is that there's very low committee turnover, so that there's there's more students coming out of the committee than there is going in, just because it's a smaller society. There's not as many people in it. So in societies like that in particular, they're what I kind of treat as the smaller societies, where there's just lack of committee turnover, and there should be someone there that they can go to and say, look, I need help, could you give us some guidance on this topic? So yeah, I'd like to be there to help those students.
And then just finally as well, Matthew, just to go back on this, the same question, just to kind of follow it up. You're right in that there should be inclusion, there should be representation in every society for all types of walk of life. But what would you say maybe for societies who directly represent those groups? How would you kind of balance that out if you have to have representation in every society? Do you think that might undermine those societies that are dedicated to those?
I kind of stand on where a lot of societies that are, dedicated to a specific minority or a specific group that needs representation, they also need to think about how they can include different types of members. Because even if they're focused, let's say LGBTA, if they're focused on just people in the LGBTQ community, they may not always think of people with disabilities or, POC or black people. They may never think of them when they're doing events. So every society, no matter what, kind of needs to have representation, and it can be like, if it's a like religious or cultural society, they can always improve and be more inclusive to everyone.
Thank you very much to both our Society Officer candidates. Just to let you know that the Societies Officer role is a fundamental role as part of the Students' Union, as it acts as a link between both the SU and clubs and societies and the wider student body. So it's really, really important that you make an informed choice next Tuesday and Wednesday when it comes to that. Also as well, just to let you know that we do have 2 other part-time positions, which is the Irish Language Officer and the Clubs Officer. The Clubs Officer isn't here this evening, but they are Cavach Deer, and they're doing a computing masters, and you'll see more of their campaign over the next week and a half. We're now going to move on to our faculty rep positions, starting with our Science and Health faculty.
Sit next to in class. There's also students who are struggling academically. The very college that they're a part of. And look, to be honest, these aren't fixed. They're intrinsic large problems. And I've already started working on them. And I really want to continue pushing this forward so we can solve these issues that students deserve, because they do deserve it. And how I plan on doing that is firstly by improving the community within Science Health, by doing things like staff student coffee mornings, bringing back the Science and Health Ball, bigger and better than ever, and instituting a Science and Health staff student faculty football, so you can slide tackle all lectures you're not particularly a fan of. On top of that, I want to really push the academics this year. I want to highlight the academic supports that are there with the career service by creating workplace readiness programs so we can actually figure out what we can do with our degrees, on top of highlighting academic supports. Oh, brilliant. On top of that, I want to have a support sphere. We have absolutely brilliant supports in DCU, whether it's the Maths Help Clinic, the Academic Help Clinic that I started, or a variety of other options. And I think it's important that we're highlighting these so students are aware. And then finally, with the student healthcare workers, and I think that it's really important to focus on this because these students are so differently affected compared to the rest of the faculty. I want to push more student healthcare worker events, such as coffee mornings, appreciation days, and maybe something larger if we have the chance. But on top of that, I also want to continue the work that I have been doing, continuing the nurse mentoring and continuing the nurse working group, so we're not speaking for these students and that we're providing them the platform to speak for themselves and have the action that they want. I have the experience to do this because I have been Science and Health faculty rep for a year already. I have been SSC chairperson, I have been chairperson of multiple societies, and I have the experience to get this done. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Adam. Adam is your only candidate who's running for Science and Health faculty representative. We will now pass him on to the College View team, who are going to ask him a couple of questions about what he will do if he is elected into the position.
Hello, Adam. How are you? So I wanted to just ask about students then that feel disassociated with the faculty. How are you going to help them, and how are you going to make sure that they actually don't drop out from that faculty?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, to be honest, Science and Health is a complicated faculty because there's a lot of differences across courses, right? And it's really what you pointed out there. You know, there's the nurses who are on placement, there are science students who spend 8 hours in a lab, and then there's psychology students like me who, you know, people think faff around and do nothing. It is a hard course, I promise. And I think really it's about creating opportunities for those students to come together, because I think you'll find that students, you know, they want to form a community. They want to be a part of DCU. They want to have friends. And I think that's how you address that issue, because a lot of the time we have such intelligent people in Science and Health that when it comes to dropping out, academic issues aren't the biggest thing. It's a social aspect of it. It's having a support network there that if you are struggling academically, you feel confident enough and that you have people to go to in order to receive that support and stay in this wonderful faculty.
Great, thanks, Adam. Just another question there from one of our writers. You mentioned that there's still students who are feeling alone on campus. So what will you do differently next year to solve this that hasn't been done last year?
100%. Again, really good question. I think I have taken action to address this already through doing mixers and the faculty coffee mornings. But as pointed out by that person, there's so much more that could be done. And I think it's really going to speak to my experience coming into the role again to be able to do more in regards to that. And I think it's going to be through these kind of larger community projects, doing things like the appreciation days for the student healthcare workers in order to get together, doing things like the faculty staff student football, which is something that, whether you care about football or not, everyone's going to want to see the lecturer who you don't really like ended up with a face full of grass. So I think it's just providing the opportunities there on a small and large scale, continuing the things that I have been doing, like the mixers, like the student forums, like the coffee mornings, on top of the extra stuff to really push it. On top of working more with societies next year, which I think is something that I haven't really tapped into this year, which I would like to going forward.
I think that's quite well represented in your thoughts. But just one thing, running unopposed is quite tough. And obviously you have a lot of ideas that you would like to complete. So what are you doing then to try and ensure that students don't vote to reopen nominations?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm absolutely devastated I'm not running against anyone. You know, it's really tough for me. But no, look, I think the fact that I'm running unopposed speaks to the quality of a job that I've done. I'm really happy to say that I have had people who are interested in the role, but unfortunately decided not to run because they do feel that I am the best candidate. And I think when it comes to campaigning for people to not vote to reopen nominations, it's about putting in the effort. It's about not being complacent and thinking because I have had it before that I deserve it or that I'm entitled to it again, which just simply isn't the case. I think it's about putting a good foot forward and showing the amount of effort that I will continue to put into this job and continue to do in the year following. I think that's how I plan to stop people from voting that way.
Great, thank you very much, Adam. Adam is the only candidate who's running for Science and Health faculty representative. But I think the College View team make a really valid point that when it comes to making that vote, you will still have choice. And what that means is that on the ballot paper, you will see Adam Daly's name, and you will also see reopen nominations, and you can make a choice to do your preferred option when you proceed to vote. We'll move on to our next faculty representative, which is our Institute of Education faculty representative. We have one candidate for that again, and that is Mark Dunn. Mark is a first-year Science Ed student. So Mark, again, will be given 2 minutes to speak before being passed over to the team for their Q&A. So Mark, whenever you're ready, if you want to kick off.
So hello, my name is Mark Dunn, and I'm the first-year student representative for Science Education. So my experience in this so far is that in secondary school, I was the chairperson of the student council, so I organised many events for students. I also organised PE uniforms for the school. In college so far, I've actually established the Education Society. So this society is actually made for education students in particular. So it doesn't actually just have to be students who are based in the IOE. It can be for students who have an interest in education. So the society is open for all degree levels. It doesn't matter whether you're a master's, an undergraduate, whatever. I think at the moment I'm doing the student representative for my course. So a lot of issues that students are coming to me with, I feel like I'm dealing with them quite well. I try to get them sorted in a timely and efficient manner. So if I was elected, I'd be focusing on 4 main elements. So that would be sustainability, involvement. Sustainability, involvement are just 2 of them. So in regards to involvement, I'd like to have DCU Students' Union and also clubs and societies have a lot more events on the PATS campus. Last year there was actually no IOE representative, so this actually means that over 5,000 student voices were gone unheard, and this could mean that a lot of issues have actually now gotten too big to handle. So I believe that as a first year coming in, I will be given a new perspective on how to tackle these issues, and that it'll be a new, nearly of a rebirth of the IOE.
Thank you, Mark. So I just wanted to ask then, you usually just picked on it there about the events on the PATS campus. So there's not as many people on the PATS campus compared to obviously Glasnevin campus. So how are you going to incentivize people then if there already haven't been a lot of events in PATS? How can you incentivize them to even go to those events if there's barely any going on at all?
So I think for events on the PATS campus, they nearly have to be specified for PATS students. So if a student was going on, say, their placement in 3rd or 4th year, that there would be pre-placement workshops that would be held by either the Education Society or by faculty members. So this would actually help students calm their nerves and find new teaching strategies before they go out teaching. I think another thing that would be great to have the DCU Students' Union have events to tackle homophobia and inclusion, because this is a main issue that is actually on the PATS campus that I believe needs to be sorted as soon as possible. I think this really can be done through workshops, events, and overall inclusion and cohesion between all campuses.
I think that's a very good answer. You kind of touched on it a little bit there, but I'd like to hear a little bit more. I think a lot of people on Glasnevin campus are a little bit, don't really think about PATS campus a lot. A lot of events are held here, you are right. So my question to you is, what issues come up on PATS campus that you feel aren't being represented? I know you touched on homophobia there, but are there any others?
So I think the fact that on the PATS campus, a lot of students actually don't feel like their voice is heard. They feel like their voice is nearly just gone unnoticed. So these issues that these students face, nothing is actually being done to help tackle them. So the students might feel underwhelmed. This could mean that they might even drop out because issues that they face aren't actually being dealt with. So I think events would actually really help, and even more support systems. It's like teaching placement can be quite daunting. Like you're going into a classroom of 20 to 30 students. Some students actually don't feel like they actually have enough preparation done for it. So I think these workshops and even events between both campuses, for the likes that you could have 1 week that half the events are on Pat's, one is maybe on Glasnevin.
I just want to ask then, so you are running unopposed, of course. Students may then, as a result, feel disincentivized to actually vote because they think, what's the point? He's going to win anyway. It's important then to make sure as well that students do vote in the end. So what would you do to make sure people actually do vote in these elections and vote for you, or vote at all?
So I think over the next week I'll be doing information mornings within the Pat's campus. So I'll be there on Thursday morning and Thursday afternoon. So if students actually have any questions, they can actually come up to me, or issues that they can come up to me, and I'll be able to try and help them deal with them next year. I think that some supports should actually be made and given out immediately, because issues that they face now mightn't be actually faced next year. So I think we'd also events with the Education Society. So this is a society that students of the IOE is actually made for. So this would help bring educators together, whether it's science, maths, primary teaching, whatever it is. It could even be further education. Teaching is teaching at the end of the day. So I'd like to just bring all educators together.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. Mark, again, is the only candidate for the Institute of Education faculty rep, but you have the option to reopen nominations on the ballot paper too. So when it comes to voting, you will have the opportunity to vote in order of your preference and then proceed to the vote. We'll now move on to our next faculty representative position, and that is for the Humanities and Social Sciences faculty rep. We have two candidates. We have Josh Ellel and Serica McGrory. Josh is a second-year media and politics student, and he will be given 2 minutes to speak before we move on to Serica, who's a second-year journalism student, who will also have 2 minutes to speak before we pass him over to the team for the questions and answers.
Hi everyone, my name is Josh, and I'm running to be your HSS faculty rep. I've been a class rep for the past 2 years and have valued that role as a student representative. I've seen firsthand the change that the Students' Union can make and the impact that we can have. The HSS faculty is one of the largest faculties on campus, and we are at the heart of DCU. I have 6 key policies which I will pursue if elected. I will campaign to change the faculty policy on late submissions. I would like to see a 24-hour grace period implemented for all modules. This would mean that students who upload their assignments late but within 24 hours of the deadline would not be penalised for doing so. I want to change the timetabling system. The current timetabling system for DCU does not work, particularly for joint honours students such as myself. I commit to holding regular clinics. I want to be linked in with students. I want to hear what your concerns are, and I will make sure that I am available to talk to you whenever you need to discuss concerns. I want to develop a code of practice for Loop materials. Loop is an amazing tool for teaching and learning, but I think that we can make it better. I think that we need a set of rules for lecturers that tell them how to best use Loop for students. I'm committed to making DCU a multi-campus model, making DCU's multi-campus model work, and representing students across all campuses. And I want to increase communication between class reps and lecturers. So that's it, 6 core policies. Most important, personally, a commitment to work hard for you. Finally, the Students' Union is a team, and that is why as faculty rep I commit to working with all the other SU officers to represent your concerns and to campaign to get more funding for universities and to lobby the government to make life better for students. Those sort of things are what we really need to work on here to make things better for students.
Thank you very much, Josh. We will now move on to our second candidate for Humanities and Social Sciences faculty rep, and that is Serica. Serica, again, you will be given 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Hiya, agus Díomh. My name is Serica McGrory, and I'm here today to talk to you about why I should be your next Humanities and Social Science faculty representative. So now that I have that absolute mouthful of a title out of the way, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 20 years old, I'm a journalism student here in DCU, and I'm in my second year, and I'm the current chairperson of the Creative Writing Society. I want to talk to you about why I think I should be your next Humanities and Social Science representative. So first of all, I'm a very hardworking person, and I've done a lot of work with the Crave Rank Society this year to really push our membership and become a better society overall. This has been successful so far, and we've really grown as a society. I'm also a very approachable person. I've been told that I'm approachable and I'm someone that people can talk to about their concerns. A couple of things that I would really love to implement if I was elected as your Humanities and Social Science representative are, first of all, I'd love to organise more career fairs for different degrees within the Humanities and Social Science faculty. I find that a lot of the career fairs are very focused on the law students within our faculty, and I'd love to see if we could get some more career fairs for, say, communication students, multimedia students, journalism, just all the different degrees within the faculty, instead of just having law career fairs. I'd also love to see if we could get some networking events going on for students, so students within the Humanities and Social Science faculty could intermingle and get to know each other outside of their own courses. At times it can feel very confined to your own course, and I'd love to see if we could get students talking to each other and making connections before they actually leave university and join the workforce, because you never know what connections will get you places in life. Lastly, I'd like to say, now while I cannot promise you the absolute world, I cannot say that I will provide you all your hopes and dreams if I'm elected. I can promise you my absolute best.
Great, thank you very much, Sarika. We'll now pass you over to the College U team, who are going to ask questions in reverse order.
Hello, thanks Josh and Circa. So I want to just firstly ask, Josh, so a very kind of bold promise you've made here now about the 24-hour kind of leeway extension for assignments. So how can you get DCU to agree to that, since they are very kind of set in their ways with assignments in general? And secondly then, with fairness to students as well, especially if they finish early with their assignments, they want to make sure they get it done early. How can you ensure fairness with those students versus those who finish late?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Matthew. Well, first of all, this is not something I'm promising that will happen. It's something that I'm going to campaign and pressure the university to do, because I think that it would be fairer for students. The issue at the minute is that this is kind of happening informally. So the case is that when some people submit their assignments maybe 2 minutes late, the lecturer is taking the 5% away that is as the faculty policy. But in some other cases, lecturers are more lenient. And if an assignment is submitted within 2 hours or not that late, then they're not deducting the 5%. And I think that that's not fair, because it's not uniform, and it depends how lenient your lecturer is, and that sort of thing. So I think that having a set policy that gives students a window in which they can submit their assignments would be fairer for students, and I would hope that I could convince the faculty to see that.
I'm very sorry, Josh, but I don't really think that it is fair, because obviously those deadlines are there for a reason, and people kind of work very hard at times. And I understand as well that there are times and fair excuses for them to be late, but there is a process there. So I don't know, how do you think you're going to go about pressuring the university to try and change those policies and change that process when kind of it mightn't really be fair to people who do their work and get it in early or just on time?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm open to people's different views on things. Maybe I'm not right, but I think that would be fairer, and I will try to convince the university of that. And that's all I can say to that. I would just reiterate that it is happening informally, and all that I want to do is formalise the process, and that it is uniform across all modules and all lecturers.
Okay, just to ask you then about the mixers that you're suggesting then, is that not what is already kind of done with the balls that they're doing, the HSS ball? What would be the difference between the mixer that you would be suggesting and the ball that already happens every year?
Thanks for the question. It's actually a really interesting question. I hadn't thought of it before, but just off the top of my head, I find that the balls can be very centred on just going out and partying. You're celebrating results. You're celebrating something that's, you've achieved something. I think a mixer would be more focused on actually meeting other people and speaking to other people and making those connections, and it'd be less based on, let's be honest, alcohol. It would also wouldn't have the same kind of fee to it. Like, you could just go home, find an outfit that you have in your wardrobe, throw it on you. It might not even be ticketed. There might not well, there might be a ticket, but it might not be the cost to it of the ticket. It can be a massive barrier for people being able to go to these balls, not having the money to actually be able to pay for a ticket, especially when they might be organised somewhat last minute with ticket sales. It just makes a difference for students who can't quite go to those balls or can't make late evening events like that.
And then just on careers fairs, how do you go about trying to implement them? Would they be weekly? Would they be monthly? And what sort of opportunity do you think could come out of them, based on maybe what you might have heard that comes from the likes of the law ones that you mentioned?
I'd hope to follow a similar model to what the law career fairs are actually currently demonstrating. It wouldn't be a weekly thing. I don't think that's quite feasible with people's schedules. I don't think it's quite fair to assume these companies can put on these weekly fairs. But it would be nice to see every once in a while, maybe even just once a semester or once an academic year, to have a career fair so that students can speak to these different companies and speak to different professionals within their field who have already forged out a path themselves and forged out a career and have made a name for themselves. So you can start forming connections with those people, and also start looking at getting internships, summer internships or your intra placements. It would give students a head start that they might not already be getting with family connections. It would just even the playing field in that kind of way.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much. That is our two candidates for Humanities and Social Sciences faculty rep. Again, that is Josh and Sarika. We're now going to move on to our business faculty representative, where we have 4 candidates running for business faculty rep. They are Bridget Curry, Shania Daly-Smith, Oifigeach McGovern and Rose O'Dwyer. Again, the part-time candidates will have 2 minutes to speak, and then we will be asked a couple of questions that are submitted from you. So what we're going to do is we are going to kick off with Shania Daly-Smith first, as Bridget couldn't make it this evening, and Shania will be given 2 minutes to speak. So whenever you're ready, Shania, please.
Hiya. As he said, I'm running for business faculty representative. So I am a first year accounting and finance student, and I believe this is the best time I can achieve this, and it's the best time I can dedicate my time to ye. Sorry, there was a bit of technical going on. But I'm currently a first year accounting and finance student. Now, I'm not a class representative like most others. However, my short time in DCU has inspired me to get involved. It has inspired me to be the change that students want to see in DCU. It inspired me and it has inspired me to improve the campus to help me find my voice, and I want to help you find yours too. Being a committee representative for the ESOC Society has taught me a lot between the importance of communication between students and staff, and being a voice for other students has inspired me to run for business faculty representative. There are 4 main elements that I strive to achieve as your representative: to create a positive learning community, make beneficial decisions towards sustainability, to help contribute to quality education and provide support to all students. I want students in every level of their degree to be seen and heard, for students to be able to take charge of their own education by linking them with their fellow peers. I believe personal experience can be the key to a successful education, and that leveraging knowledge from experienced students could be the way to do that. I believe developing the mentorship program that we have already instilled is beneficial for our students' mental health and well-being. It allows students to feel valued at most. Most importantly, I want students to feel they have consistent support throughout their time at DCU. Lastly, as I am sure you all agree, sustainability is more important than ever. There are many sustainable elements that we can use, could bring into action. The digital materials resources DCU provide is a huge help towards positive environmental impact. However, educating our students on the importance of sustainability and encouraging them to take action is something we should value, as well as investing in the community. I aim to make changes that make college more accessible to all DCU students, but I need your vote to do so. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We'll now move on to our second candidate for business faculty rep, and that is our 3rd year aviation management with pilot studies student, Oifigeach McGovern. Oifigeach, again, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Oifigeach McGovern. I'm a 3rd year aviation management student, as Paul said. In my first year, I was at home, obviously. But I didn't get involved much in society life as I was at home. I couldn't do much, but I joined GCU Carton as a first year rep, and towards the end of my year I started to run for societies officer in the DCUSU. So I've experience within the Students' Union, listening to students, doing what I think is right for them, and listening to them, what the issues they have, and addressing those issues. Through then my second year, I also became the chairperson of DCU Carton. It's been an incredible experience. I've loved being involved in society life, involved in DCU in general, building up what I believe is a good resource for students. And towards the end of that year, I decided then to run for the chairperson of society life. That has been an incredible experience in listening to students. I've addressed a few key issues in terms of accessibility, training, budgets, issues that societies have. So I've experienced listening to students. But the issues that I've found within the business school is mainly intra. There's no notifications for students as is currently. The system is outdated and it crashes multiple times, so I want to address that and change that. The other issues is I've experienced now in the last couple of weeks as I return to college, you cannot book a room within DCU for your group projects. That's what I want to change as well. Erasmus students aren't checked up upon when they're away abroad. Students have told me that. And also I want to continue what Ava has done this year, talks with societies, academic societies, and what they can bring in people to talk about the issues that they may have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Oisín. Our fourth candidate for Business Faculty Representative is Rose O'Dwyer. Rose is a third-year Mint student. Rose, again, will have 2 minutes to speak whenever you're ready, Rose.
Hi, everyone. As mentioned, I'm a third-year Mint student. I've been a class rep for the past 3 years, and in that time, I've gained great experience in discussing any issues that my peers may have had, and I've also gained great relationships with the members of faculty within DCU Business School. I've also had experience in leadership roles within Gaeilge Society as Vice Chairperson and Speakeasy Society as Secretary. In my experience in DCU, the faculty are really accommodating. You just have to ask. And as someone who is always quite shy and afraid to speak up, especially in first and second year, I'd like the opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of DCU business students. If I was elected, there's a few things I'd like to change. As Oisín already mentioned, the intra-portal can be a very frustrating experience for students, and third year is already hard enough with the ambiguity. So if elected, I'd like to update the platform slightly because it doesn't reflect well on DCU as a university, especially for employers looking at it. I'd also like to continue the communication throughout Intra and Erasmus as to what the process is, and when they go off on their placements, just to continue the communication. I'd also like to facilitate a clinic or drop-in clinic fortnightly, because approaching faculty can be daunting and sometimes class reps just don't have the time to bring up any issues. So I'd like to offer drop-in sessions so that students can come to me with any issues they might have, as I will have more time to bring up these issues. I will bring up more on my Instagram page, but thank you for listening and please vote for me.
Thank you very much, Rose. We will now pass over to the College View, who are going to ask our three candidates a couple of questions.
Thanks very much. So, Shani, I just want to ask you first, you just touched on sustainability and promoting sustainability in business faculty. There wasn't kind of much detail on what you do, so could you just tell us how you would actually do this?
I do believe DCU does really strive for sustainability as it is, but like, for example, we do have the loop portal, but most colleges have this loop portal. We're just following the crowd. We need to be there before them. Being there before everybody else will actually stand out as a college, as a university. Now, the ways we can do this is through our power, our electricity, solar panels. We can encourage this. We can encourage students to be sustainable, encourage students to use the correct bins. It can start off really, really small. It can grow really big. But as of right now, we don't even use the correct bins. A lot of students don't. And we can teach this to them through workshops and so on.
Thanks very much. Now, I just want to ask Rose then next. You touched on Erasmus, So there was a lot of kind of ideas about how to kind of, improve intra. I just want to know about Erasmus. Are there any improvements you would make on how the process works with Erasmus particularly?
Actually sat in on one of the business management meetings last week, and it was brought up that a lot of Erasmus students are feeling lonely and isolated, and they're just not getting the same support from DCU, and they're not sure of what services are available to them and whether they're still DCU students. So I'd like to continue that communication and facilitate it so that they don't feel quite alone, and that they're available of the services that are available to them as DCU students.
Thanks, Rose. Now, Oisin then, just on intra then. So in an email from the intra team, because we're doing intra ourselves as well, it was noted that yes, while the system is outdated, it still works and you could still get an intra placement from it. So can I just ask you then, if you want to improve the system, then why bother changing it when it already works?
You could say it works to a certain extent, but to say it works does not say that it works properly all of the time. I know when I was applying for intra, a lot of the time it would crash multiple times a day. When jobs went up, I didn't know if jobs went up. I just had to continue checking. There's many times the students within my my course, they didn't have a job in intra, and they'd missed other jobs that were put up because they were placed up within 2 or 3 day deadline. No one knew about them within a month or two of them coming out. I think you could say it works, yes, but it doesn't work properly in the sense that students cannot they cannot take advantage of the resources that are there, the jobs that are put up. So yeah, it just needs an overhaul really, but you could use the same system, of course. It just needs a lot better. Thank you.
Thanks. Just on Shania, you said with the mentorship program, I'm not too familiar with it. I'm not a business student, but could you explain how you would like to develop that further and maybe what it is as well?
As of right now, at the start of when I first started first year, there is 2 mentors that are introduced to us, and we do have a group chat, and they're great. But I would like to introduce it more, meet up regularly, such as like CV overviews, mock interviews, real business practical aspects, what DCU really encourages, and I really want to further that with the mentorship program. It's there, it's great, but I do really think it could be way more beneficial in terms of what's going on.
Very good. And then you said, you said the same thing. Was it Rose? Is it? Rose, yeah, pardon me, Rose. You said the same thing about the intra portal as well. How do you feel? Do you share the same as Oisin, or do you think that do you have another idea for it?
I just think that it should be updated. It's very outdated, and for the expertise that we as DCU have, I think it should be updated more, because not only is it really hard to read the jobs that you're applying for, and I've heard of some people accidentally applying for jobs, and then if you don't attend the interview, you get knocked out of the platform. So I just think, more for accessibility reasons, it should be updated, and then it doesn't reflect well on DCU. For employers that are looking at it as well, they're seeing the same thing that we are. It's hard enough for students to read, but poor employers trying to read our CVs, and I think it would be a lot more convenient if we could just upload our CVs as a Word document rather than having to go through each of the individual segments. Thank you.
Yeah, I think they're very fair points made by both of you on that. And then just lastly, I'm aware that you're the SLC chair, Oisin, is that correct? Are you planning on running again? And if so, how would you balance both of those roles?
So I've taken the decision not to run again as SLC chair. I quite like to give the opportunity to someone else to take over. Adam Daly was chair before me, and he did a wonderful job. We all assisted him, but he led the way. He did a great job at it. But I wouldn't like to run again. To balance both jobs at once would be quite a lot of work. And I'd like to bring the expertise that I've taken from my work within society to bring that over to business. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Great, thank you very much. That marks an end to all of our conversations with our part-time candidates. Just like to say a huge congratulations to our candidates for putting themselves forward for election. It's not easy putting yourself out there to want to make a difference to student lives, so it's really, really impressive to see that they're willing to do that. All of that work also happens alongside their studies, so they're taking out that time commitment to do that. We're now going to move on to our full-time officer positions. We have 5 full-time officer positions on the Students' Union. We're going to commence with our Vice Presidents for Community and Citizenship. We have 2 candidates for VP for Community and Citizenship. Those are Emma Monaghan and Alethea Williams. We're going to kick off with Emma Monaghan, who is a final year comms student, and they're going to have 3 minutes to speak, and then we'll follow up with questions after that. So, Emma, whenever you're ready, you can kick off.
Perfect, thanks Podge. So yeah, as Podge said, my name's Emma. I'm a final year comms student. I'm 21, I'm from Donegal. My manifesto is centred around student renters, commuters, sustainability, charity work and volunteering, and activism and political engagement. So when it comes to student renters, I really want to work with the president of the union to lobby the government and the college for more on-campus, purpose-built student accommodation. I'm a student renter myself, so I know how important it is to know your rights when it comes to student accommodation, and I want to help make others aware of those rights, and I want to help them through any kind of troubles that they might come across with tough landlords and the sort. When it comes to commuters, I want to set up a commuters working group. I'm not a commuter myself. I live 10 minutes around the corner, so I really want to hear the issues of commuters face to face, and I want to see how we can combat them together. I'd love to set up like timed lockers, like you see in shopping centres like Jervis, just for commuter students, because I think it would be a great resource for them to have somewhere to leave their stuff. So we all know the locker system in DCU, it's a bit iffy. You get one at the start of the year, you might not even use it. And I think timed ones would be a great solution to that. As for sustainability, I've worked with Swap Shop over the years. I'd love to see that get more of a platform. We've also seen a massive increase in vapes, and it would be great to set up permanent vape recycling boxes, because those lithium batteries are going to waste, and it would be great to see them be put to use with there's people making portable chargers and stuff out of them, which would be a fantastic thing to see. I'd love to set up Too Good To Go in all of the food places on campus, so you could set up with New Bar, with the canteen, Londis, anything of the sort. I also want to ensure that the bins are being used properly and to encourage the use of reusable coffee cups and water bottles. So with charity work and volunteering, I'd love to get more charities on campus to show off what they can offer to students, volunteering opportunities through events such as the volunteering fair, which was really successful this year, and I think it could even just get bigger and better. For activism and political engagement, I'd love to set up stands during Freshers Fair, during Clubs and Socks, the Clubs and Socks Fair, and get students signed up to vote. I'd also love to see some local councillors come in for maybe debates and stuff, just to inform kind of students around the local area of their councillors and what they stand for and help them learn more. And then just to finish up, I'd love to work with the VP for Diversity and Inclusion to help promote a more tolerative and welcoming community around DCU. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Emma. Alethea, you will now also be given 3 minutes to speak, so whenever you're ready, off you go.
Yeah, thank you very much. So hi everybody, my name is Alethea Williams. So I am a final year international business and French student here in DCU, but I'm sitting here in front of you this evening to tell you that I'm running for VP for CNC. So to me, community and citizenship is a really good role to go for. The main reason I'm here is because I want to give back to the community that gave me so much when I joined here in first year. So since my first year, I've been heavily involved in society life, specifically in Actus, which for those of you that know of that is social entrepreneurship. So stemming from that, sustainability is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and today I'm actually wearing sustainably produced earrings that I make alongside my wonderful campaign manager Ishita. So it's a sustainable business, so that would be something that I'd really like to push for students. So in terms of that, I would really like to work with all faculties and hopefully have students who want to get into volunteering or already are volunteering or even pushing innovative efforts. Having those students recognized and rewarded is something that I'd really like to focus on. In terms of community, I would really like to foster a more connected DCU. So running more events with faculties mixing, so you're not just staying in the business school, you're not just staying in the engineering school. Moving on, I would really like to set up a platform that would allow students to be informed of their social and civic rights as well as responsibilities. So having that outlet where people can go get that information that they need to help them, whether it's finding accommodation, whether it's dealing with stuff on campus, whether it's sorry, forgive me, I've forgotten my train of thought. Moving on. And finally, I would like to ensure that all students in DCU are connected no matter how far away they are. So that's about liaising with lecturers as well as clubs and societies, making sure that events are set up in a way that allow all students to attend, specifically commuters, setting them up at an earlier time so you're able to go to and from. So as a final point, I'd like to point out you probably have not seen my face around campus too much. I understand that I have a lot less experience than a lot of the candidates you're seeing here tonight, but I think that's what makes me very interesting. I'm here to bring a fresh insight and some new innovative ideas, so I'd really appreciate your support, and thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Alethea. Emma and Alethea are two candidates for VP in Community and Citizenship. We're now going to pass them over to the College View team, who are going to ask them a couple of questions if they get elected into the role.
Thanks very much. So I want to go to Emma first then. So you were speaking about more student housing, the housing crisis. So the housing crisis has not improved since the academic year started last year when Nathan was elected. So how would you, as a result, get more student housing put in when it wasn't put in the first place during this academic year?
I mean, I think it's not something that's going to be solved overnight. I've seen the consequences of it myself as someone who lives in student accommodation. And I think we need more protests, like the walkout, like the Fuck the Fees protest. We need to approach it as a community. And I think, the strength in numbers, it's just one of those things that you just have to keep at the government, and hopefully eventually we'll get what we want. But yeah, as I said, it's not something that's going to be fixed overnight, but you just need that kind of group mentality and to foster a kind of fire in students, just to shout for what we need, because the government haven't listened this far. But we keep that fire alive, and hopefully we'll get some results eventually.
I just wanted to ask Alethea then on the housing crisis then. So you want to get more people involved in the events and, get mixing kind of schools and all, but to be able to get those schools mixed, you need the students, and you need the students to be able to come here with housing. So how would you then, as a result, fix this? Because there is no magic answer to this. How would you try to alleviate this housing crisis? Would it be trying to get more student housing? Would it be trying to lower rent, which is already impossible? What would you do?
It almost seems like an impossible task, but I think the problem, in order to solve the problem, you really need to open the conversation. So it's pushing people to share their difficult stories. It's about coming out and opening the space for people to share what they went through and how they got through it. It's important to know that, yes, we're all struggling. It's such a shame. I have friends personally that are really, really fighting with it, and I see it firsthand. It's not easy, but once again, opening that floor, allowing people to see that there is a way out, and really sticking it to the people that need to help us as well. I think banding together and really taking that community aspect, which is exactly what this is about, to stand up to them and fight for what we deserve.
To Emma, just on what she said on the on housing, especially on kind of promoting more protests happening. Is protests the magic answer here? How are protests ultimately going to help this crisis? Because we had the housing protests there a few months ago, but nothing has been done since then. So how is a protest going to help?
I would genuinely put a lack of results, after that protest, down to a lack of further action being taken. That momentum had been brought up so much, and then it just fizzled out because there was no kind of further push by USI, by colleges. We probably needed more momentum with that afterwards. But I think protests, they've gotten us a long way. Like, even if you think of the Fuck the Fees protest, I'm sorry for swearing, that, like, as much as it's not amazing, like, we got the €1,000 back for fees and stuff for students, and the double SUSI payment for SUSI students, which is, it's not a massive win, but it's a win, and it's a step in the right direction. And I think that kind of group effort is what creates results. So, yeah.
Just to build on that then, what would be your opinion on the referendum that's been posed to the students on whether or not we should leave the USI? Because obviously you said there that there was a lack of momentum on their end, which didn't really build any further momentum or any change. So what would be your opinion on that upcoming referendum?
Genuinely, I think it might have just been an issue with kind of an overlap of many things. Like USI, they're a busy team, and yeah, there could have been more done. But from what I've seen, I've attended Congress. I know USI give massive benefits to the college. They train our Sabats. They do all the lobbying with the government for us. It cuts out a lot of kind of, like, it's a middleman essentially. It gets us to where we need to be without our Sabats having to put in that work. So yeah, I would fully be in support of voting yes in the USI referendum.
And then Alethea, you said there that you would like to get students involved regardless of distance, and I think it was something to do with online events. Was that what you were suggesting?
That was part of it, but mainly so liaising with clubs and societies to set events up in a way that they are accessible to everybody. So people who have to commute can and still will obviously do so, but it won't. Attending an event will not affect them. So setting them up on days where classes are not busy, setting them up at times where it won't clash with a bus. Having them in places that are easy to get to those buses as well if they're not on the campus as well. So that sort of thing. So really kind of making sure that event management plan is set and is thinking about everybody in that society, in that club, attending that event.
Just with that, it's like not everyone's going to be able to go to events all of the time. And I think that's sort of what's kind of granted when those event management plans come. So how would you kind of try and develop that idea in regards to the timetable part that you were talking about there? Because I mean, everyone's timetable is different. So would you kind of suggest that there are days where most classes from all courses are a little bit like light?
So once again, that's really about speaking with the students. That's really about talking to lecturers. That's about asking timetabling, all of these things to really pick those days. I think from my experience and my societies, the way that we tend to do it is between the committee, which unfortunately is just not reflective of what the actual society or what the actual club is. So it's not just those core people that matter. It's important to get everybody's opinion, and I think the way to do that is right from freshers, right from joining. You know what you're getting into, having the societies, having the clubs have those set times already for those reoccurring events, reoccurring sort of meetings, those things, so people know what they're getting into when they're right there. That will also help with the continuing of forging those relationships in that society.
Thank you.
Great, that is a very big thank you to our two candidates for VP for Community and Citizenship, Emma and Alethea. They are one of our 5 full-time paid officer positions. We'll be moving on now to our next position, which is the VP for Diversity and Inclusion. We have 3 candidates who are running for VP for Diversity and Inclusion. That is Sam Mooney, Rupinder Singh and Alexander Victor. Unfortunately, Rupinder and Alexander couldn't be here this evening, but we do have Sam Mooney, who will also be given 3 minutes to speak, tell you about her ideas and why you should vote for her next Tuesday and Wednesday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So Sam, whenever you're ready, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, okay, so my name is Sam Mooney, and my pronouns are she, they,
and I'm a current creative writing master's student here at DCU, and I also did my undergrad here in English and music, so I've been on campus for about 4 years now. I kind of want to talk about the two reasons that kind of lit a fire in me to run for this position. Number one is I feel like I have the lived experience. I am a neurodivergent queer woman, so I feel like I've faced discrimination throughout my life. I was diagnosed with dyspraxia DCD, a coordination disability, when I was about 12 years old, and ever since then and ever since I have been openly, visibly queer, I've faced a lot of discrimination, and the idea of that happening to students in DCU kind of terrifies me, and I never want a student to feel the way that I have felt throughout my life. The second reason why I decided to run is also that I am the co-chair of the Neurodivergent Society, and I've had a lot of students email me and come up to me about things that they've faced in DCU that has been difficult for them. And just as a fellow student, I haven't really felt that I've had the power that I need to help them, and it was very frustrating. So that's why I wanted to run for this role. I also think it's a little bit important if I just run through some relevant experience that I have, because I would never put myself forward for a job that I didn't think I was qualified to do. I was a spun out mental health ambassador, and I was trained in public speaking, and I've engaged with students for a lot before. I've worked for Dyspraxia DCD Ireland, doing talks all around the country, doing workshops, doing creative clubs, creating a safe space for neurodivergent people. I have gone into the DAL and talked about how there should be more diversity and inclusion in the education system, and I've yelled at a lot of TDs to try and get them to listen to me. I've also been a part of the Buddy Refugee program here in DCU, so I've worked with a diverse range of people. I also, a lot of my creative work intertwines with diversity and inclusion. I'm even going to be running DCU's very first Neurodivergent Poetry Festival in March. And I also want to point out that education really is key to my campaign. I fully believe that all staff, the faculty, students, societies and clubs should be educated on what it means for diversity and inclusion so that there are no more excuses. I want students to be able to go up to lecturers and say, this is my disability, this is my gender, this is my sexuality, this is my religion, and they understand your needs so that there's no need for this communication error that's been happening a lot. If you have to explain yourself and what you have or what supports you need, it takes away from time getting the supports you need, and it also leaves space for there not to be this big huge discussion about it. We should just get students the supports that they need. So that's something I'm really going to work on, and I'm going to work with students to listen to them and recognize my privilege so that I can help. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Sam. Sam, you will also be asked a couple of questions from the College View team now.
Thanks very much, Sam. So I want to just first ask about diversity in the education system. You touched on it there a minute ago. So I just want to ask, what does that mean, education in the diversity in the education system, and how would you improve that here in DCU?
It means that we need to give supports to students so that they're all on the same playing field. So for example, in terms of access, we need to be giving more supports to students, money and funding, so that they have the same extracurriculars that other students that have. Students with disabilities, we need to give them extra time in exams, separate rooms to do exams, extra time, things like that, scribes if they need them, laptops if they need them, and things like that, so that all students are at the same playing field, and also that students feel seen and heard in the education system, and that they feel like they have a place in DCU, and that if they're in a room that they belong there regardless of their gender, their race, their religion, that they deserve to be present, and that way they can focus on their exams and not have to worry about, do I even belong here, do people think I shouldn't be here, things like that really. Thanks.
And on that, what have you heard about anyone's problems concerning diversity in the education system? Is there any particular area that you want to hone in on, or is it just a general kind of thing?
I mean, I think it's important that I engage with students if I was elected, that I went directly to them to listen to the problems that they had. But I think that there's been a lot of stuff with neurodivergency that's been difficult, where people felt lecturers haven't understand their disabilities. I myself have gone up to lecturers and said, I'm neurodivergent, and they've been like, I don't even know what that means. And to me, you can't educate someone if you don't know that. So I think that's really important, and that I think it's important that people, I was talking about it earlier, but feel like there's a place for them and there's like a safe space for them to talk, to be themselves, regardless of anything. Those are the kind of issues that I think DCU definitely needs to tackle. Awareness is a really big thing, but also offering the supports they need. And I really want to work with the disability services to see how much supports we can offer in the registry services, to see how much we can engage to make it easier for students to get the supports they need, so it's not this big, huge battle every time. Yeah.
Okay, and then I just want to ask then about what you mentioned about giving more kind of accommodations to students that need it. Just particularly, I want to ask about extenuating circumstances. So, do you think the process currently for extenuating circumstances is good enough, and do you think it needs improvement?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a huge improvement there. I know personally I've even had lecturers be like, no, I don't think that works, like that's not how it works for you, or they won't understand my disability. Or I've even had them be like, no, that's for dyslexia, that's not dyspraxia, or that's for this or that's for that, even questioning that I don't know my own disability, which to me is absurd. So I think there needs to be a better process. I think it needs to be looked at on an individual scale with the student, but also for the individual different disabilities or different needs for whatever it may be, so that we're educated on every single different thing, so that we know that just because one way is for one, there isn't another. And I think it needs to be better understood that people who are disabled are going through an extra battle that you don't know about. So extenuating circumstances should really be intertwined with disabled students, in my view, and it should be better. So yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you very much, Sam. Sam is one of our 3 candidates for VP for Diversity and Inclusion. Their main work is going to focus around making sure that everybody feels part of the DCU community, regardless of whether you're a mature student, an access student, a parent, a commuting student, international student, postgrad student, but whoever you are on campus and off campus, that while you're part of the DCU community, that we celebrate your individual differences and you feel part of the entire community alongside every other student here in DCU. We're now going to move on to our next role, which is the VP for Wellbeing. We have 2 candidates for the Vice President of Wellbeing. That is Sarah Fitzpatrick and Katie Warren. We're going to kick off again. They will have 3 minutes to speak before we pass over to the team to ask a couple of questions. And we're going to kick off with Sarah Fitzpatrick whenever you're ready.
Okay, some of you may know me as the one of 2 blonde girls running for Wellbeing, so I should probably introduce myself. I'm Sarah. I'm a final year psychology student, so I've always been interested in well-being and mental health and reducing the stigma around mental health. So that's what got me interested in doing psychology and now doing VP for well-being. So I've kind of always fell into roles in DCU that explore different aspects of well-being. For example, I'm the current chairperson of the Club Life Committee. So that's a committee that oversees all the clubs in DCU that kind of addresses the physical health aspect of well-being. So, and it's also given me experience in listening to students' voices and also advocating for different issues that students bring forward to us. And this year I was also a consent facilitator with Student Union, and I helped train over 100 students in DCU, and that kind of gave me insight into students' opinions of their sexual health resources in DCU and their sexual experiences in DCU. On my intro experience, I also worked in DCU with the Teaching Enhancement Unit, and I helped change assignments in 5 different programs to help reduce student stress. So that kind of gave me an insight into that aspect of well-being too. There's a few things that I would change if I was VP for Wellbeing. The first kind of mental health aspect, the first thing you kind of think of is the counselling services. So I would like to increase the amount of sessions available to students. Also improve the physical accessibility of the physical counselling rooms. And I would also get more multilingual counsellors for international students. Also, I would like to make the mental health resources outside of counselling services better. So I would really strongly advocate towards the DCU accommodation staff being trained for crisis mental health situations. And I would also advocate strongly for pronouns to be available as an option on Loop, so that students can feel comfortable in their lectures and that protects their mental health and their well-being in that aspect. I'd also advocate for to encourage students to engage in long-term health behaviours. So I'd like to get cancer breast check vans on campus regularly, and I'd like to start an initiative called P for Pizza, where you get STI checked for pizza, because the student union love to bribe students with pizza, and there are a few of my ideas.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. We'll now move on to our second candidate for VP for Wellbeing, and that is Katie Warren. Katie, again, you will have 3 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone, so my name is Katie Warren and I'm a final year communications student here in DCU. The reason I want to run for this role is I feel like I want to give back to DCU for everything it's done for my wellbeing for the past 4 years. As someone who has personally sought out the counselling service here, I've become extremely passionate on the subject of mental health. And on the topic of mental health, I would love to bring in a DCU-based Movember movement. So this would allow support groups of people to come in and have discussions and rely on each other for support on mental health. This would also include having familiar faces around campus and having more people to talk to about your issues. These meetings would also be held on Zoom for, let's say, commuters who can't access this as well. I'd like as well the awareness and greater use of note takers around campus, particularly for mental health. I really want to break stigmas around mental health, especially particularly with men's mental health, as I feel like I know the issue is discussed, but I feel like the stigma is still very prevalent. I would also like monthly check-ins on the weekly newsletter to say, asking students how are they really feeling with their mental health, and I'd personally drop below my email and all the resources you can use. As well as that, DCU counselling does not have a psychiatrist on campus, and I'd really like for a psychiatrist to be on the DCU counselling service. So if you don't know, I'm actually a dancer, and being a dancer, especially in heels, I'm all about empowerment, body positivity, sensuality, and I really want to hold weekly workshops to do with empowerment for all. These would include classes, workshops where students and alumni could speak on the issues that either kickstarted their career or that they have a really big interest in, and this would be really achievable to enhance students' CVs as well as alumni. I feel like this could be really something new, a new avenue for wellbeing for DCU. I'd like to break the stigmas on STDs around campus. This would involve consent classes, preferably on open timetable, where students could attend wrapped in the weeks between 1 and 4, and this would be held on both campuses. And this would also discuss abusive relationships and the awareness of signs of domestic abuse and sexual abuse on campus. I'd also like more breast checks around campus as well. There's a lot of pressure on students, especially around exam season. I'd like to introduce yoga, meditation, and activities that would happen before your exam to take students away from the pressures of sitting in an exam and worrying about their grades. I'd also like to decrease the clamping and parking fee on campus. And I'd like to introduce a time management program particularly for students on intra who may be out of sync with a couple of matters in relation to studying with exams. I would also like to introduce the pronouns on loop, and I'll work with registry to do that. Finally, I'd love the option of a free gym trial for all students on campus or on intra or whatever they are doing at the minute. This is something that I think could be feasible on campus. As well, I'd love to encourage healthy eating options and have drug testing kits available at the SU desk. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. Sarah and Katie, you'll now be asked a couple of questions again by the College View team.
Thanks very much to both of you. So I want to first ask Sarah, just on improving mental health services and staff training as well for mental health crisis situations. It's a very serious topic, mental health crisis situations. How can that be done in a timely fashion for staff to be trained in these situations, and should all staff be trained in this?
I think it's obviously not a short-term kind of solution, like you can just pop it out in a few weeks, because it is such a sensitive topic, and you do have to handle it with care. You're going to do more damage than good. We do learn that in psychology, that you have to handle these things with such care and mindfulness. But I do think that even if that staff can't be trained in a very fast manner, that it doesn't mean it's not worth it to train them. That even if it's not done, if I was elected, even if it's not done during my kind of term, if it's done at all, or if it benefits like future students, then it's really worth it.
But yeah.
So then, Katie, I just wanted to ask then your idea for a free gym trial. So that was floated last year as well during the previous campaign, and nothing ever happened with it. So how feasible is it for this to actually happen, and how much would it cost DCU itself, and could this really happen?
Okay, well, I'm not exactly sure of a rough estimate of cost, but I do know that there's been a change in management of the gym, and personally I'm aware of the fact that this manager of the gym is a lot more open to the idea of having a free gym trial. And I really do think it's beneficial for people, because I personally love going to the gym but find it hard to access with fees and everything. So hopefully this could be implemented through even a free class that students could attend, maybe a poll suggestion saying, are you really interested in this? And students can decide for themselves whether it's for them. But I do think it's an important factor, and I think it would be beneficial. But I also do think it's feasible for the gym.
Just, Katie, again, you said that you'd like to introduce a psychiatrist on campus. I think that's a very good idea, but what impact do you think that would make on campus?
Well, I think for students who would need the use of a psychiatrist rather than a therapist, it's something that isn't really discussed enough, and I think would have brilliant use for people who may have undiagnosed BPD. It's something that campus needs. Obviously, personally, I've sought out to the counselling service, and I personally know people with BPD and the lack of support that they have felt. So to have someone on campus that can help with that issue in particular would be very beneficial, I believe.
To ask just the same question to the both of you, if that's all right. So, what can be done to further support members of the LGBT community on campus? Is there anything particular in your campaigns? Because I didn't really hear much myself. What can be done to support them? And if there's not really much being said, is enough already being done?
So on my manifesto is the preferred pronouns and preferred name on loop, so that can make sure that they're being called the right pronouns in lectures, because it's intimidating, especially for first years coming in, and lecturers are calling them the wrong pronouns, and it's very stressful for them. So that, I think, is very, very important. And also on the clubs and socks management system, I feel like preferred pronouns on that as well, because in clubs and societies is where people make friends and introduce themselves to new people. So for them to be being dead named or called the wrong pronouns, that obviously doesn't help them. Also, I think that period products should be put in gender neutral toilets as well for people who use them. And yeah, I think that's the main kind of things.
Well, personally, I know I didn't get enough time to discuss everything that I needed to discuss, but the one thing that I did notice as well was that there was a lack of pronouns on loop, and this is something that I hadn't even realised. As I identify as she, her, for me personally, it's kind of deemed as a walk in the park, but for other students, it's just not that way. And I think that pronouns on loop, as well as maybe in your email attachment, is something that could be done so that students aren't misgendered. Personally as well, I have a meeting coming up with the LGBTA Society on everything else that I can do to improve more events around campus and things like that. And I also agree with Sarah, period products around all bathrooms on campus is something that can be implemented as well.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much to our two candidates for VP Wellbeing, Sarah and Katie. Student Life being what it is, we're coming to you from the U building here, where we have our candidate conversations happening upstairs, and we also have blind date happening downstairs. So you'll hear lots of commotion in the background, I'm sure. We're now going to move on to our final VP position, and that is the Vice President for Academic Life. We have one candidate for VP for Academic Life, that is Owen Crossan. He's a graduate of the Bachelor of Education programme, and he's also your current VP for Academic Life. Owen, again, you will be given 3 minutes to speak before we'll ask you a couple of questions, so whenever you're ready, you can kick off. Thanks.
Gurmina Malga Podge. So, as Podge said, my name's Owen. I'm your current VP Academic Life, and I'm also a recent graduate from the BEd in primary school teaching. I won't go on too long about my background. Obviously, you've seen me as your VP Academic Life this year. I was also a class rep for all 4 years for my course. I was first year officer back when I was a little baby in first year. And then I was also the chairperson of Class Rep Council for 2 years. So I've a wealth of experience within the SU. So the first thing I want to, suppose, lay out about my role is that I want to be student first in everything I do. Continuing the booking system I've had on this year, if there's any clashes, ensuring that students are prioritised. And one of the big issues I want to tackle this year is access to education. I want to tackle hidden course costs, so things like materials charges, especially in education courses, as well as any additional fees that may be levied on students. I want to ensure that placements for students, that they feel connected to the university, but that they also feel like they're connected to wherever they're doing their placement. So whether that's in a school, whether it's in a hospital, whether it's any other setting, I want them to feel both connected to the university and to that setting. And a lot of this boils down to national funding. I think students shouldn't have to foot the bill for this. Ultimately, it's up to the government to properly fund higher education. So through USI, as well as on our own steam, I really want to lobby to ensure that education is properly funded here in Ireland. It's a national issue and it needs a national approach. I want to work with the university to implement a Students' Union partnership agreement so that the position of the union is cemented in future. Relations are good now. Will they be good in the future? We don't know. If we have a partnership agreement to rely on, I think that would really cement the position of the union. I want to hold constitutional review as well to ensure that the union can properly service students. So this would be done, obviously, we'd have to bring it through Class Rep Council, and then I'd like to have student focus groups on this review to make sure that our Students' Union works for the students. On that kind of note, I want to talk about Students' Union communications as well. So again, how the Students' Union communicate with you. I obviously think we do fantastic work, but I want to make sure that we can communicate that in the most effective way possible, so it's digestible, easily understood, and that we're telling you about all the good work we're doing. I want to tackle the shortage of student space on campus as well. Obviously, this isn't something that's going to be remedied overnight. We need to work with the VP Community and Citizenship as well as Students' Union President in order to ensure that there's more student space on campus, particularly spaces that have been closed. We've seen this down in Pat's a good bit, so places like the Resource Centre in St. Pat's and other spots as well. I want to reintroduce the SU Book Fair because it's a cost-effective solution for students, as well as being able to make a few quid back from selling your old books. You'll also be able to buy second-hand books. It's sustainable, cost-effective. I think it'd be class. As well as that, I delivered the first tailored DCU class rep training last year. I want to build on that, use the summer to ensure that class reps can operate in the most effective way possible because they are the absolute backbone of the union.
Great, thank you very much, Owen. Owen, you will now also be asked a couple of questions by the College View team.
Thanks very much, Owen. So I wanted to just ask about the funding of education. So €1,000 was taken off the student fees anyway, at least for this semester. So is that enough? Should more be done? And then in the end, how should education be funded? Because the government so far has said they wouldn't do it. So how would you get it done?
Sorry, can you just repeat the first half of the question? Sorry, I just lost it over the noise.
So it's €1,000 that was taken off for this previous semester here now. Is that enough? Should more be done?
Bluntly, more should be done. €1,000 was taken off. Ultimately, students are still paying €2,000. That's €2,000 too much. The government needs to step in. We need fully publicly funded education. That is just how it is. It's not good enough to say that we have free education for students, that we have free fees. It's free with a little caveat. $3,000 for most students from all walks of life is not free. It's not a small amount of money. You know, students are having to work part-time alongside their studies. They're having to pay extortionate rents. It's not only the €3,000, it's everything else. It's a societal issue, the cost of living and things like that. That all needs to be tackled, but a great start. While €1,000 is a start, students are still paying €2,000, and of course, it has to be noted, it was a once-off measure. The concessions going forward are smaller and far from good enough.
I'm curious to kind of ask, is that kind of a hill you would like to die on, in the sense you'd like to get rid of fees and abolish fees, considering that a lot of your work on the union and a lot of the work of your colleagues on the union this year was to try and push DCU to implement more student purpose-built accommodation. I'm unsure how it would work if we aren't paying anything and you still want the university to build these structures. Can you explain to me how you'd kind of explain that to me? Yeah.
It's a really reasonable question. I think you look at it's beyond the Students' Union, it's beyond the university. It is a national issue that needs a national approach. Students shouldn't have to foot the bill for education. I think, with so many jobs in the world now, whether rightly or wrongly, you can make your own mind up, require a third level degree. I think this level of barriers being in place just isn't fair on students. I think ultimately the government need to step up. They need to ensure that adequate supports are in place for students. And not just adequate supports, but let's be honest, they need to put their money where their mouth is and ensure that there's adequate funding for universities, so that the university itself, that DCU, doesn't have to penny pinch, that they get adequate funding and support from government to ensure that they can deliver the best student experience possible. And I don't think an abolishment of fees and building of purpose-built student accommodation, I don't think they're exclusive things. I think they can both happen with adequate funding.
So I just want to go back to the student fees, if that's all right. So there's the referendum coming up now, along with the student union elections, and they are to add on €8 for a full-time student and €5 for a part-time student to be affiliated with USI. So the USI doesn't want you to pay fees, but then wants you to pay more to be affiliated with the USI. So that referendum doesn't make sense then, if you're wanting to be part of the USI but having to pay for it. So can you explain why this referendum is even happening?
Respectfully, I disagree with your assessment of the situation. I think, it's almost disingenuous. I think students do gain value from being a part of the USI. Ultimately, these are national issues. They need a national approach. By being affiliated to the USI, it almost frees up our sabbatical officers to work in DCU on DCU-specific issues while also being able to attack the national issues. They're the middleman. They do a lot of our lobbying. Like, I understand students are paying money for it, but they are getting value for it, because ultimately, if we weren't part of USI, your officers who should be in their office here, whether it's in Glasnevin or Pats, would have to be in government, lobbying government, when I think we can all agree their place is on campus supporting students.
Yeah, I kind of agree with your point there. But just with that then, I have two questions kind of with that. Why are we then having a referendum to leave? And also, another person who was running today kind of criticised the USI not doing enough, especially when it came to the programs and the events that they were pushing, the campaigns that they were pushing. So what would be your stance on this referendum, and why is it going ahead in the first place?
Why we're having the referendum is because we pay a membership fee and we want to make sure that students get value for their membership fee. So that's why we asked the question. If we decided 10 years ago that we want to be affiliated with USI, everything was peachy then, things weren't peachy now, there'd have to be, another referendum called, whereas if we do it automatically, it ensures that we're getting our value out of it. In terms of criticising USI, I have criticisms with USI. I think it's fair to say, I think any organisation that represents that amount of students, there is going to be issues with. But ultimately, I think the best place to criticise USI and reform USI is from within it. We have plenty of our officers currently in USI, running for USI this year. They're really well placed to bring a DCU perspective on this. Ultimately, if we decide to disaffiliate because we don't like it, we lose that national presence. As well as that, we also are then knocking on the door from the outside, shouting at them, criticising, and what's to stop them just closing the windows and not listening to us? So I think we're better off criticising from the inside and trying to make it better. Nínearc, Gaeilge, Gaeilge, and all that crack.
Thank you very much, Owen. Owen is the only candidate for VP for Academic Life. On the ballot paper, you will have reopened nominations again, so you will have that choice. It is important to remember that our full-time officer positions, they are paid positions, and that your officers work here in these offices year-round, making changes for you in your student life. So it's really, really important that you make an informed choice next Tuesday and Wednesday. We're now going to move on to our final position, which is position of President. We have two candidates for President. The first is Thomas O'Dowd, who is a graduate of the Bachelor of Civil Law programme, and we also have Brandon Perry, who is a final year Media and Politics student. Again, each candidate for President will be given 3 minutes to speak before being passed over to the College View team to ask a couple of questions. So we're going to kick off with Thomas. You will have 3 minutes whenever you're ready. Thank you.
How are you all doing? So, as Podge introduced, my name is Thomas O'Dowd, and I'm running to be the candidate of DCU Students' Union President for the next academic year. Currently, I am that person that's on the door, and I am the current SU President. So, my manifesto is kind of broken down into 5 kind of key points. So number 1 is on student spaces, then it's on the commute and accommodation on campus, student life, nightlife, the DCUSU union and bringing it back to the students in form of a review, and the final piece is kind of combating the cost of living with student jobs and cheaper work for people to do. So firstly, I'll start with the last point that I mentioned, which is to do with student jobs. I want to work with the campus companies that are on campus, such as the bar downstairs, the restaurant, the Helix. There's various companies going on in DCU. And I want to work at ensuring that there are an allocated amount of jobs for students, so students can work alongside their studies here and earn that bit of extra money that is ever so needed now in today's current climate. Along with this, I want to do a part-time workers working fair, similar to how careers do career fairs for after college, but I want to do something where we get companies in that work specifically for part-time workers to assist students. I want to then look at a DCUSU review. It's been a while since we've done our last review. A pandemic has happened in the middle of it. So I want to look at kind of 3 main points. I want to look at our function of our class reps and how we can really increase our class reps, how we can really look at class rep council and increase the engagement with our student body. I want to look at our postgrad representation and start treating postgrads as workers and not just students, and get in the unions for postgrad workers and to really engage with that cohort a bit better. And then I want to make sure that the officer positions are working for the student body currently in DCU. A pandemic has happened since the last time we've changed our manifestos and our campaigns and the decisions of the union, and a lot has changed. Next, I want to work on student nightlife. We've done some fantastic things this year and I kind of want to really build on that. I want to use my contacts in town to create events for after parties after our events. I want to work with nightclubs and venues in town and get deals for clubs and societies and class reps to book out venues and hold their events and nights a bit cheaper. And I want to work with alcohol-free alternatives as well and get alcohol substitution companies in too. On the point of accommodation, I really want to work with the university and with the government, both through USI and through ourselves, lobbying the ministers, to ensure that the 1,200 rooms that we have on campus with planning permission get built, or there's a start on building them. We currently have been waiting over 4 years for these rooms, and the land is just sitting out there at the back of Larkfield, and we need things to move in this direction. And that really is it in my manifesto. My experience is I was very involved in extracurricular activities from clubs and societies. I was a class rep, I was in the DJ society, I was in the marketing society, I was in the powerlifting club, and I was in snow sports. And I've really loved this year and really want to continue representing the students of DCU. Thanks a million.
Great, thank you very much, Thomas. Brandon, you will also be given 3 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
How are you? I'm Brandon. I'm a final year media and politics student, and like Todd, I'm running for student union president. I've decided to do this because I think we should have just an ordinary Joe Soap representing the students. That's one of the key points. Todd talked about reforming the student union. I'm more trying to get the power directly to students rather than reforming CRC. One of my policies is to have town halls and office hours for officers, so that rather than communication with the student union being mediated via class reps, ordinary students will have more direct connection with the student union, and hopefully more powers will be diverted down to ordinary students. I'd like to see student politics in general become more representative of the wider student body, with societies and the SU itself taking on more prominent roles for students from minority backgrounds and working class backgrounds. Another key policy area for RME is affordability. As we all know, we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, which on top of how expensive university was just at a base level. I want to introduce kind of regulation around how affordable events can be, just general affordability around campus to ensure that the widest range of students can engage with the widest range of activities in the SU. In the university. Affordability is central to everything. Another key area for me is accountability. Like I was saying, I want more direct connection between student politics and ordinary student members. I'd like just generally more transparency around decision making and policies and so on, more consultation. The main focus is to bring power to the people, just a grassroots, because there's 18,000 students in DCU. That's around it, yeah. And we're talking like a dozen or so have the power. I mean, we'll be lucky to get 50% voter turnout. I just want to see change, positive change, power to the people, greater affordability, greater accountability. I just want a more unified campus, unified student body, more inter-society, inter-faculty, inter-campus. Just unify the student body, bring it to the grassroots, just power to the people. That's the real aim of my campaign.
Great, thank you very much, Brandon. Thomas and Brandon are two candidates for president. They will now be asked a couple of questions by the College View team.
Hi guys, so Thomas, I want to come to you first. So last year when you ran for president, the College View of course interviewed you for our pieces, and you said back then, I think a lot of people after COVID were saying, what do I have from college other than a year and a half online? So for those that are now going into final year, what would you do for them?
So as in the students that are coming back?
They're going into their final year now when you're going to be in president.
Fantastic. So for currently students that are going into final year, let's just take example, let's say a business student. A lot of business students might be coming back from intra. So we'd be looking to bring people back together in a community setting. So I know people have mentioned mixers, the nights out, kind of putting that emphasis on community again. For students then that haven't been on intra, the best way is just to get everyone back together. Final year is a really difficult year, so we'd be offering more supports, maybe in academic support, in kind of ways to deal with the struggles of final year and the pressure that comes on that. I know myself, final year when I was a student last year was really difficult, kind of finding a balance of enjoying the last few months in college and making academics a bit easier. So I know this year with students down St Patrick's campus, we did a final year students teachers ball, and that was kind of our last kind of hurrah for this student cohort, and the event went really well and it sold out and people were looking for tickets. So I think it would be based on kind of specific to each faculty and to each course what I would do, but we'd be really trying to bring people together for the most valuable kind of experience for the last years in college and really look at how we can progress them going forward.
So again, Thomas, just something, I think last year you ran unopposed. So obviously this year is a change. You have Brandon who's going up against you. So do you think you've done enough to be re-elected? And what are you trying to do or promote to kind of show that you want to keep going and you want to do more?
Well, I'd like to think that based off the year I've had so far, that I've done a good job, that students wouldn't find a reason not to vote for me. I'm still really passionate about the student movement, and one thing that I left out that's also topical at the moment is kind of student spaces. And these are things that we're working on at present, and I really want to just stay for another year to ensure that I get to continue the momentum that we've built this year, and a second year would really allow me to consolidate so many of the things that we're currently working on and really see them over the line.
Yeah, Brandon. Sorry. Brandon, what's your opinion on how Thomas has done this year, and what do you think you could maybe take from what he's done and do better?
Todd's done a great job as the SU president. Like he's mentioned, lots of great ideas he brought with him. I supported him last year. Obviously, he didn't have opposition, but still. What I think we can take from this is to build upon. I've loved all the events he has carried out. I've loved his engagement with the student body. But I think my goal is to take it a step further. Like I mentioned, greater affordability for events. I'd like to see more power diverted to ordinary students. I just think we've got a great foundation here, and I just want to take it up a notch, just to really redirect power away from a select group towards the mass of the ordinary student body, because I feel like it is a very limited power circle, and I'd much rather see it be spread out amongst ordinary students.
And I think those points were made very clear in what you in the 3 minutes you were given there. But just on that, for the town halls idea, I think it's a very good idea to include and invite people to come and speak about all the issues that you're doing every day. Because, I mean, most students, they don't really know what goes on within these rooms and these offices every day. So how would you kind of promote them coming to those events? Because, I mean, just my own opinion, the last thing I would like to do maybe on a Friday is to go to a student union town hall. So how would you kind of promote those events to where it's something that they enjoy, something they actually gain out of?
I think that's a great point, because one of the kind of key concerns I have with town halls is would it be redundant when we have CRC, we have a select group of students who are engaged? Would it be just the same groups going to both? But I think a lot of students don't like the kind of mediated area of CRC. I think it'd be great. It's very much is a long-term plan. I think within a year, it'd be hard to completely change the way students engage with the SU and policies. I'd like to see kind of a beginning, promote it on social media, promote it around campus, make an event of it that everyone is aware of. If you have a concern, if you have any questions, a query, just you can come. I like with office hours is another policy. I'd like to slowly build towards an area where all students feel comfortable with consulting with the SU.
So then, Thomas, I just want to ask then that Brandon was saying that he wants to improve transparency in decision making in the Students' Union. So do you think that the Students' Union this year has been transparent enough?
Yeah, well, firstly, like you look at the meetings that we have an executive meeting every second week, apologies, not every second year. That wouldn't be transparent at all. We've our exec meetings every second week. We put the minutes up for that online as per the Constitution. We have our CRC meetings, which the minutes get approved. We have officer reports at council. We go out with a weekly newsletter every week. Our website is constantly up to date with decisions that we're making. The information is out there. I think it's important that we look at different ways that we can get the information to students. But that's something that there's so much support in the university that we're all trying to work towards currently. Like if anyone has been looking at the details, like our newsletters have changed, the way we relay stuff on social media has changed, and the priority is that making students aware of where that information is and finding a way that we can really get it out to them in a manner that's easy. So to answer the question, I would think that we've been extremely transparent, and it's just about how we further that information to students.
And then just lastly as well for Thomas, you brought up this, was it the building with 1,200 rooms, been on planning permission for 4 years. How do you plan on trying to progress that? Like, was there anything that you did this year to try and tackle that, and what do you hope to do again next year or start next year?
So this year, something that I think I can really improve on next year is kind of the national piece and national lobbying. It isn't something that I can't build that many rooms. I'm not going to go out to the back of the car park and start digging foundations. I would if I could in the morning. I just don't have the facilities for that. But what I think we can really work on improving is our engagement with the ministers. Now, after the walkout, we were all rallied, we were ready to go. Got a few emails out to Simon Harris, got a few emails out to other people, but I didn't really push after that. So what I'd be looking for next year is really lobbying the government much more, because fundamentally they have a role to play in it. They have a role to play in the societal issue that we have at the moment, and we can't look at student housing as a crisis without looking at the housing crisis as a whole. And if there were 1,200 more rooms that were affordable and purpose-built for students that had the right amenities, we would be in a much better position in the local community. So it would really be kind of working with the university to lobby the government and whoever the relevant ministers are at the time.
Thanks very much.
Thank you both.
Great. Thank you very much to our two candidates for president, that is Brandon and Thomas, and a very particular thank you to all of our candidates who have put themselves forward here for Lead DCU 2023. That brings to a close all of our conversations that we are having with our candidates this evening. Just as a reminder that voting takes place on Loop next Tuesday, the 21st, from 7 a.m. until Wednesday evening, the 22nd, until 7 p.m. How you vote is you log on to your Loop page, and over the coming days you will see a module called Students' Union Elections, and it'll appear alongside all of your other courses. When you click in there, you'll be presented with a grid with each position in it, and you click into the position and you'll follow the steps by putting number 1 next to your preferred candidate, number 2 to your second most preferred candidate, and so on and so forth. Over the coming days as well, you will see our candidates out campaigning and popping into your classroom, meeting them across campus and online, sharing their ideas with you and giving you the reasons why they believe that they are the best candidate for the job. It's really important that if you have the opportunity to engage with them, to make sure that you cast your vote again next Tuesday on Loop. Just before we finish up, I'd like to say a big thank you to our College View team who came in this evening to ask all those really good questions to our candidates. I'd also like to say thank you in particular to Maddie, Jack and Donal and the rest of the MPS team who are fundamental in actually creating what is essentially a place that Late Late Show will be very jealous of this evening. And finally, just a particular thank you as well to my own co-pilot and student leader coordinator of the Office of Student Life, Barry Clohessy, who has been fundamental in pulling all of this together. And I think it's really, really important that we've been able to pull this all together and put it out to you, our students, where next week, again, Tuesday, 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Wednesday evening, you'll be casting your vote. Thank you very much.